This season of family history will be based around the Holland family. While Henry Hooper Holland was born in Newport, 1742, he is most frequently associated with South Kingstown in his adult life. Great-grandfather Henry married Susanna Ladd on November 23, 1766. Susan was the wife of the elder Henry Hooper Holland. She was a member of a well-established Rhode Island family, and her life was marked by the hardships of the Revolutionary War while her husband was away, and eventually captured at sea. She lived most of her adult life in South Kingstown, which was the primary residence for the Holland and Ladd families after the British occupation made Newport, Rhode Island dangerous. The Ladds were frequently documented as farmers and local tradesmen. They were closely intertwined with other prominent South County families like the Teffts, Gardiners, and Congdons. Susanna's life was particularly difficult during the late 1770s, a wait-at-home patriot. While Henry served as a Marine on Revolutionary privateers and naval vessels, Susanna was left to manage their household in South Kingstown. When Henry was captured by the British and held as a prisoner of war, Susanna would have been left without news or financial support for an extended period. During the war, Rhode Island was a frontline state, with British ships constantly raiding the coast of South Kingstown. Many families in the Holland and Ladd circle had to move further inland, toward Exeter or West Greenwich, to avoid the foraging parties of British soldiers who would steal livestock and burn homes along the Narragansett Bay. Susanna and Henry had several children who carried on the family name and connections. The most notable for all of our historical family research is Henry Hooper Holland Jr., born in 1767. He followed in the family's footsteps and eventually married Sarah Sally Tefft. We will talk about the Tefft family and the King Philip's War in another episode. If you see great-grandma's name listed as Susanna Mulholland, don't be alarmed, because the family name was still transitioning from the Irish Mulholland to the anglicized Holland. During her lifetime, legal documents, like land deeds or marriage bans, sometimes use the older version of the name. Great-grandfather Henry Hooper Holland was a mariner and a soldier and a high-ranking Marine during the Revolutionary War. Because he was born into a seafaring family in Newport, his father, John Mulholland, was also a mariner. Henry spent much of his life on the water. However, his occupation during the war years is what makes him a standout figure in our amazing family history. Henry served as a Marine on American vessels. During the Revolution, the distinction between a sailor and a Marine on a ship was specific. Sailors handled the rigging and navigation, while Marines were the sharpshooters and boarding parties. He likely served on privateers, armed private ships authorized by the Continental Congress to capture British merchant vessels. This was a common job for Newport men who lost their civilian livelihoods when the British occupied the harbor. Let's move on to his capture during the Revolutionary War. Henry was captured by the British while serving at sea. Many captured Rhode Island mariners were taken to New York Harbor and held on the notorious British prison ships, such as the Old Jersey, the Hell Ship. Conditions on these ships were brutal, and surviving them was rare. The exchange. Henry was eventually released as part of a prisoner exchange. These exchanges were often man for man, an American Marine for a British sailor. After the war and his release from captivity, Henry moved away from the volatile Newport docks. The family moved to South Kingstown, where he transitioned to a more stable life as a landowner/farmer in South Kingstown. This was a common move for veterans who received bounty land or who married into families with land, like the Ladds and later the Teffts. By the time he reached his 90s, he was revered as one of the last living patriots of 76 in his community in Rhode Island. Great-grandpa Henry Hooper Holland is the patriot who we speak about today when we say, "Make America Great Again." Henry Hooper Holland is buried in a small historical family plot in South Kingstown, in Rhode Island. His final resting place is documented by the Rhode Island Historical Cemetery Commission as South Kingstown Cemetery No. 117, also known as the Henry Holland Lot. The cemetery is located on private property. It is a small, rural family burial ground The marker confirms his death in 1836 at the age of 94. Revolutionary recognition. Because he was a veteran and a prisoner of war, his grave has been a site of interest for organizations like the Sons of the American Revolution, also known as SAR. In this historical family plot, you will also find a modern bronze veterans marker or a small American flag placed there by our fabulous local historical societies. Susanna Ladd, Holland. His beautiful wife is buried alongside him. Though early female markers were sometimes smaller or have become more damaged by time, she is right there with him for loving eternity. The graves of his children and grandchildren, including some members of the Tefft family, are in nearby historical lots or within the same beautiful enclosure. Thank you for joining me on this amazing journey throughout our incredible historical ancestry. Please subscribe to my channel, drop a comment, and hit the like button. I will see you soon. Bye.